Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. I have a wonderful guest with me today. I really do believe that maybe he's a brother from another mother. I don't know, because we do have a bit in common. His name is Barry Karch, and he is a broker and owner of the Real Estate Powerhouses, which is a real estate company for the new era embracing technology to provide cutting edge service for their clients. He is also the host of the Running for Your Life podcast, which is a podcast for mature runners who refuse to give in to father time and are dedicated to getting better every day and get fit together to live a long and healthy life. Who doesn't want that? Barry, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Hi, Cheryl. Thanks for having me here. I'm really excited about it.
Oh, I'm so excited about this conversation. And just so the audience does know, I was a guest on your show recently, not because I'm a runner, but because, I don't know, you just invited me on and I said yes.
Well, because you're into fitness over 50 also. So you're a perfect fit for the show.
I think that this is kind of a new revolution that's going on. What do you think?
I think so. I think the population is aging in general. And at least when I think of myself and I compare myself to my father at the same age, when he was my age, I think there's a big difference of people now from how the previous generation was. I think people are more conscious of health and fitness now.
I totally agree. And I was actually a guest on another podcast titled Own the Gray just a couple of days ago. So, of course, the episode hasn't gone live yet. But it was another one of those, we're not the generation to sit back. We're the ones that are the game changers and kind of showing the future generations what graceful aging, healthy aging looks like. And I have to say, though, my dad, up until the time he was in about 83, he was the picture of health and vitality.
Wow,
and he
fantastic.
never stopped. Yeah, he never stopped moving. And it wasn't that he made the conscious effort to be an athlete or athletic or to stay fit. He just had things that he absolutely loved. Like he did karate up until he was probably in his late 60s. He was an avid downhill skier and he skied beautifully until he was probably 80 years old.
Wow, that's incredible. Our fathers were pretty different. My father was brilliant at business. He was outstanding. He put all his effort into that, but he put no effort whatsoever into his health and taking care of himself. And so he wasn't in very good shape. He was always overweight a bit. And what really scares me is he actually died just 7 years older than I am right now. So that's getting scarier and scarier every year. Get older and approach the age he was. So that keeps me motivated more than anything to try to stay in the best shape possible.
Well, I think you probably have a lot more things that motivate you, and we are going to talk about that a little bit as well. But I just wanted to ask you a few questions. When did you start running? When did it become such a big part of your life? And how did it just suck you in a good way?
Oh, okay. Well, I was kind of a late bloomer. I didn't do much in athletics or sports or anything until my late 30s. I like sports. I like watching sports, but I didn't participate. I would play for fun, maybe a pickup basketball game here and there, but really nothing to speak of at all. And then when I got to my late 30s, my father-in-law started having some heart issues. Now, he was much older. He was he had my wife at an older age than your typical father, but he was already approaching his 90s at that point when he started having some heart issues. So I started thinking maybe I should start being more active and trying to take care of my heart and get in better cardio shape. So I started running in my late 30s. So I was just running on my own, just jogging, no plans. And one of my, I don't know if you want to call it a vice, but I love pizza. And so I went to this pizza place all the time down in the corner from my house. And I knew the people that worked there just because I was in there so much. And just in talking to the guy behind the counter was around my age. And just in talking to him, it turned out he was a big runner. I never even knew it. So we talked about running and we started training together. And so I got into running pretty heavily because just the coincidence that the guy at the pizza parlor was a runner. And so we did a lot of training together. And it turns out we ran 8 marathons. And I did all kinds of races. I must have done 15, 20 races a year, not all marathons, but I did 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, even 1 mile races. So we were training and pushing like crazy. It was pretty intense. I almost felt like I had a second job, really. We actually, by that time, the group of us grew to about, I don't know, 7, 8 people that we all trained together. And so we were running very, very hard and always trying to get better, better and faster and faster. And it was, I enjoyed competition, but it got to a point after doing that for 4 or 5 years that it really wasn't so much fun anymore because it was just, we're always pushing ourselves into the discomfort zone. The running was never comfortable. I was going very, very hard. Not that I'm the world's greatest runner, but I was going the best to my ability, the best that I could do. I was trying to maximize my potential. And so I was, after about 5 years of it, I had enough. I just couldn't mentally get myself to push that hard anymore and push myself through all that discomfort. And so I was trying to come up with a way to tell him that I wanted to stop training. And I couldn't think of a graceful way to break the news to him when one morning he told me that he was moving out of town. So I never had to tell him. So we stopped the training, and then I kind of went off on my own. And then for the next 20 years, I was just so tired of the pushing and I just went easy. I went into basically an easy jog. I wasn't really much of a runner anymore, more like a jogger. So I was just going slow, easy. I never could go more than about 3 miles. 6 really almost killed me. 6 was very hard. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but from where I was at before doing marathons, I was a big, drastic decline in mileage. So I started running very easy. I continuously ran for the next 20 years, but it was just totally different. But the bad news was I kept eating like I was a marathoner because I could eat anything back in those days and not put on any pounds whatsoever. So I ended up putting on about 35 pounds above my previous running racing weight. Every time I would weigh myself, it would be more and more and more. I would cross all these barriers as the weight would go up and up and up. And I kept asking myself, when are you going to do something about this weight? When are you going to take action? And I guess it never bothered me as much as I enjoyed the ice cream and the chocolate and the pizza. I liked that more than I cared about the weight. So the weight kept going up. And I finally hit my 60s. And I just said to myself one day, you want to live a long and healthy life? Well, now or never. You got to do something about it, or, it's going to be too late. So I finally, when I hit my 60s, took action, changed my diet. I took off all 35 pounds. And that was really, as far as I was concerned, the end of the story. I wasn't planning on going back into running or racing or anything. And one day asked me, she said, "Are you going to try a race again?" I hadn't even thought about it. And I thought, well, I guess I could see where I'm at now after all this time, because I hadn't done a race in 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm like, I guess. So I signed up for a 5K race. I didn't really train much for it. I really didn't train at all for it. But I ran the race, and one good things about getting older is there's less competition in the races as when I was younger. So surprising to me, I ended up getting first place in my age group in the 60 to 65 category.
Congratulations.
So I was pretty happy with that. Yeah, that was very unexpected. And then I decided to take on a little bigger challenge and do a half marathon, which I don't know if anyone's not familiar with it, it's 13.1 miles. This one I did train for. I followed a training program and I ran pretty well. I'm not running like I was 20 years ago. I mean, I don't want to give you the false impression. I am slower than I was 20 years ago, but I still did pretty well. I did the half marathon. I got through all the training with no injuries, felt great, and came in pretty high. If I remember right, I ended up in my age group. I think I came in 11th out of about 165, which
Wow.
I was pretty happy with that. So I guess that's a long answer to your question about running. So I haven't consistently run for the 20 or so years. It was a long break there, but now I'm back into it. And the thing is, Cheryl, I found that I enjoy it more now than I did 20 years ago. I absolutely love it now. I have so much fun doing it, and I'm just overjoyed with anything I can do. I'm just happy with that I'm out there and doing it. And it just makes me very happy.
So I'm wondering if that is, an age related thing too. It's, almost like, hey, look at me at this age. I'm over 60 and I can do this and have fun doing it. I think it puts a completely different slant on doing something like that, rather than pushing yourself so hard you want to throw up
Yeah.
when you're
You,
younger.
you hit the nail on the head. Exactly. That's what it was like back then. And now I'm just thrilled. You're right. I'm like, wow, I'm out here doing this in my 60s, and I can't believe I can run like this. I love it. So it's a totally different perspective on it.
And I love the irony of how you walk into a pizza parlor and that's where you find your running partner. I mean, it's just, I love it's almost like an oxymoron.
Yeah.
And it just reminds me of like a book title, a man walks into a pizza parlor and comes out a runner. It's just really funny. And I also think it's
Yeah.
absolutely just, karma that you didn't know how to tell your running partner that you couldn't do this anymore and you didn't want to do it anymore. And it's like, guess what? He's leaving town. So it took you off the hook.
Exactly. So those are a couple of good instances there.
Yeah, I just love the way that happened for you. So now, and I also love the way that you're talking about how much you love running. For someone who doesn't run and who would only run if my life depended on it, I find that admirable, but I really kind of understand just from the movement activities that I do, that feeling of not only accomplishment, but that feeling of satisfaction that comes over you when you're doing something physical that you love.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you're doing it with a group. And I don't know if you do run with a group now, but because of your podcast, you really do have a community.
Right. I'm running basically solo now, but I will be with a group shortly because I am planning to run my first marathon in 20 years in December.
Goodness.
So I signed up with a local training group. There's a running club here, and I'm going to be training with them starting in a few months from now for the marathon. So that'll be good because long runs, it helps to train with people because you're out for hours on end on the road.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to talk about that a little bit more because I want to hear about that. But before we do, I want to go back because I looked at some of the episodes that you have posted on your podcast on the site. And I was looking at episode 13. I didn't have a chance to listen to it, but I love the story. It's about Ruba and Nate.
Yes, Reba and Nate. Yes.
Reba and Nate, and they went from being really overweight and not being able to run even a block to running half marathons and then full marathons. So I think I really want to give that jolt of inspiration and motivation for the listeners who think, well, yeah, maybe, Barry can do it, but, he was running when he was younger, so he knew what to do. For somebody to commit to, okay, we're going to train together, we're going to run together, we're going to get into better health, better shape, to me, that is just incredibly inspirational and admirable.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I don't have any natural ability at this either. I'm just a regular guy. Like I said, I didn't participate in athletics or anything growing up, so I have no special talent at running. But what helps me is you have to, and keeps me going, is you have to have what your big why. That's what I call it. Why are you doing this? Because you need a reason to get out of bed and get out the door. Because I mean, for me too, every day I wake up, I'm not thinking, you know what, I would like to do more than anything in the world. Let's get outside and run 10 miles. It doesn't go that way. I mean, I have to motivate myself to get up because no one's there making me do it. So you need a big why. You need a reason. Is it that you want to get in better cardio shape? You want to take off weight? You want to stay vibrant, active, and healthy for all your years? Whatever it is for you, you need to have that big why. And that's what comes into my head when I wake up in the morning. And I want that more than I want more sleep. And so that gets me out of bed and gets me going.
So that brings me to, you have a whole list that I copied of like positive affirmations. It was on LinkedIn. So everybody, if you want to check out Barry on LinkedIn, he is there. I'm sure he would love to connect with you. So I'm putting words in your mouth. So I apologize for that. But one of these affirmations, what was it? Oh, here it is. I didn't even highlight this one, but this was beautiful. Pardon me. I am at peace with nature when I run. I embrace the warmth of the sun on my skin, the comfort of the breeze, the cheerful sounds of birds chirping, and the camaraderie of my fellow runners. I mean, to me, this, it almost sold me on putting on a pair of running shoes and getting out there because it was so beautiful. So it's not just pounding the pavement. There's so much more to it than that.
No, yeah, it's beautiful. And for me, I love running first thing in the morning when I get up because it's later in the day, things come up, get in the way, you get tired. So I like to go early, especially when the sun's rising. And the first mile is always the hardest because you're going from a state of rest into an aerobic zone. So it's always, always hard. So I try to be very grateful and appreciative and look around the start. And I love seeing that sunrise and hearing the birds, seeing the trees. That just makes me so glad to be alive, so thankful that I have the ability to do this. And it gets me in the right frame of mind to have a good run.
So I'm curious, do you do any kind of a warm up or do you just hit the ground running literally? No judgment.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad there isn't because that's one thing I've been terrible about. People always say, well, you should stretch, you should do this, do that. I just get out there and run. I'm as stiff as can be. I'm the stiffest person you'll ever meet. So I don't stretch well. I just get out there and run.
Okay, so I'll give you my personal opinion about that. I hate that word should, because everybody loves to tell us what we should do.
Okay.
And especially at this point in our lives, we pretty much know what we want to do, and nobody could tell us what we should do, but we know what we could do. And if that works for you, that works for you. I know I do, you know me, I do a lot of things that are kind of extreme, with martial arts and some of my other activities. And I don't do the silly warm-ups and the silly stretches and all that stuff because I know my body well enough and I know what it needs. So I think that's another part of being a mature athlete is having that understanding of yourself and being able to say, no, thank you when people are trying to give you unsolicited advice.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I just kind of warm up as I go. That's my warm up is the first mile.
Yeah. And it's really funny. I mean, even as a physical therapy student, I remember one of my clinical instructors said, why does anybody need to warm up? You're already at 98.6. That stuck with me over all these years. I still remember that.
I like that. I never heard that before.
And it's really interesting in ballet class, when I stopped stretching, I got a lot more flexible. So go figure. So I'm not advocating for the listeners who are going, this is really confusing. We just went on a tangent here and, whatever works for you, and that's what you need to follow. The other one was the older and wiser. And this one, I think, was a solo episode that you did yourself. And I love that there was a question mark at the end of it instead of a period or an exclamation.
That's a work in progress. I'm trying to be wiser. I would like to think I'm wiser than I used to be. And as you know, Cheryl, I've had a little bit of injury in my left knee for a while. And the old me would just keep pushing through it, ignoring it, and hoping for the best. But I know eventually it always gets way worse. And then you end up with more time on the sidelines because you got to sit out for a while. So as much as I hate to do it, I hate missing workouts. I did take a few days off to try to get better and heal. And it did help. It didn't get perfect, but I got up to about 90% of where I should be. And I'm probably more than that now. So I judiciously, hopefully took off a few days here and there. So that's one of the lessons I learned from getting old, I think, as a runner.
Listen to your body.
Yes. Never been very good at that, but trying to get better at it.
I wasn't good at it either when I was younger, and until I got like slammed with a couple of really horrible injuries, and then it was like, oh, you know what, my body had been telling me, or it had been giving me signals. So that's another key point for the listeners. Please do listen to your body, and it's okay to take a couple of days off. Our bodies do need to rest and recuperate and repair the, and I'm using air quotes here, damage that we're doing to our tissues. We want to, when we're working out really hard, we are doing like a little bit of damage, micro tears in our muscles. And that's what helps them get stronger and build more tissue and stronger tissue. Same thing as you're pounding the pavement. Your bones really need that kind of impact to strengthen and build stronger bones. So keeping that in mind, you do need the workout and you do need the rest, and finding the balance is really the key. And that changes with time.
Exactly. And until this knee problem that I had, strangely enough, I was running more frequently and injury-free than I did 20 years ago. When I did the half marathon training, I was running way more than I ever did before. And I felt great the whole way through it. So that was like a big surprise to me.
Wow.
But maybe it caught up with me. I don't know. But I'm almost back now. I'm almost back.
So speaking of time, I love the name of your podcast, because it's, running for your life, and it's trying to outrun, or I think outsmart Father Time. When did you come up with the idea for the podcast, and how did you pick that title?
Okay, well, I never expected to be doing the podcast, first of all. This just all came as a surprise. Like the same thing as this racing again after 20 years off. So I didn't expect to be doing that. And then all of a sudden here I am doing a running podcast on top of that. So that was kind of a surprise. So where did the name or the
well, even just getting the idea of doing a podcast about running, and then the name, and I'm telling you that the podcast art is absolutely beautiful. I love it. It says it all.
Thank you. When I started doing the running again, I just had so much joy and happiness doing it. I feel like I found myself again, like my missing someone I've been missing for 20 years, because I just found myself again, and I got so much joy from it, and it really permeated into my whole life. It just changed everything, because I think of myself differently now. And I just wanted to share the joy of running, the positivity of it, and just try to encourage and inspire other people to do it also. So that's what the purpose of the podcast was. And as far as the running for your life goes, as we get older, what's very, very important to me is I want to not only live a long life, but I want to be healthy. I see people, as we get older, a lot of people have a lot of aches and pains, or can't hardly walk, or have just can't get around or do much anymore. And I don't want to be like that. I want to be very, very active and be able to do things, travel a lot, lead a vibrant life. So that's what my main focus now. That's what's really important to me. So, I know Father Time's out there, but I want to try to stay in front of him as long as I can, and try to outrun him as best I can, and just hold him off.
And I wrote a book, Fitness Over 50, and I always say it's about busting the myths of aging and punching Father Time in the face.
Yeah, I love that.
I know that's when I'm in my ninja mode. If I'm being in my, kinder, softer side, it's like stopping Father Time in its tracks. But it is possible. Our bodies are incredible. The way they were put together, they were made to be able to function and do everything, that we want to do during the entire course of our lives, as long as we take care of it.
Yeah, I like being able to do things now that most people our age can't do, or don't do, I should say. Choose not to do. And what makes me even happier is, on occasion, on some races, if I'm able to beat some people that are younger than me, 10, 20 years younger. And I absolutely love that too. So I'm a competitive person at spirit, at heart, I guess. So I love being able to outdo younger people also, if I can.
I know, isn't that great? Okay, and I know just because you brought that word up, that four-letter word, love, I know that you also love it when people think that you're younger than you are.
I do. I get that actually a pretty fair amount of time, that when people hear how old I am, or they tell them, they're like surprised, like they had no idea I was this age. Or I have people that sometimes I'm out with, and they're younger than me, and they just assume they assume that I'm younger than them, but actually I'm like 5 years older than them sometimes. So I love that. That's my favorite thing to hear of anything.
And I like to say that living well and looking good is the best revenge for, it's just a fun thing to do.
You know what? On the same line, I always joke with my wife. I tell her, the older I get, the better looking I get. I may not have been so great when she married me, but I'm better now.
And what does she say?
She laughs, and she laughs, and she agrees. She says she thinks I look better now than I did then also.
Well, that's a wonderful compliment. And I don't know, I didn't know you back then, but you look fabulous.
Oh, thank you. You're too kind. And you do too, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
You look very young.
Oh, thank you. I'm telling you, I really do think it's the ring light and the, I think I might have a filter on Zoom. I'm not really sure, that kind of, takes a few years off. I don't know. But anyhow, I am not going down without a fight is actually the point. And I don't think any of us should.
Yes, I love that.
Okay,
No.
so I'm going to read a few other of those affirmations, but before I do, why don't you share with the audience why that is important? I mean, it's a list of 38 statements that you wrote down. And why is that important, and what motivated you to do that? And when you did post it, on LinkedIn, what are you hoping to motivate other people, or what is your intention behind it?
Well, when I go out running, I have a lot of time on my own to think. Especially, I mean, right now I'm doing hour and a half runs sometimes on weekends. So it gives you a lot of alone time to think. And as I mentioned before, I just try to be very grateful and thankful that I'm able to do this and happy. But like everybody, you have to fight off negativity too. I have negative voices in my head that come. I'm getting much better at fighting them off than I used to be. But I got a voice in my head all the time that tells me, you don't have it today. Take it easy, or let's cut this run short, or you need to slow down. You can't continue this pace, or just I have things like that in my head going through my head, or you're not as good as you used to be. You can't do this anymore. So I have to fight these things off, and I try to take in a lot of positivity. I listen to positive podcasts. Yours being one of them that I love. I love the upbeat and positivity of it. And also I read positive books. And so I've gotten better at this. And I have these thoughts go through my head. Everything I wrote down are just things that run through my head at one time or another as I've been running. And I just put them all together. I wrote them down just to inspire people, really, and to give people positive affirmations that they can do it too. Running can be painful at times. I don't want to sugarcoat it. Sometimes it's great and fun, but there always comes to a point in every run when you get tired, you get worn out, your legs ache, and you got to power through it. And so these are some things that run through my head sometimes. And so I guess, again, the point is just to try to inspire and encourage people to do it and be positive.
Well, they're great. I mean, I love them so much. And one of them, another one, I'm just going to pull a few of these out. I reject the belief that I can't keep getting better as I get older. That's highlighted, just so you know, it's highlighted in yellow, because I think that is a incredibly powerful statement.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I found that my times are getting better now than when I started running. So I am improving. I'm continuing to improve. And I don't see why we can't keep getting better.
And even a small improvement, and I think that's on the second page, even taking delight in what you are able to accomplish, no matter how big or how small. That's another really important point I wanted to make to the listeners, because, if you go out and you're just new at this and you haven't, been running, even a walk down the block is a start. And that's something to celebrate. And then the next day it could be 2 blocks. Then you start trying to jog it a little bit. So
yeah, I see so many people what encouraged me to write that was I see so many people downplay their accomplishments. They say, oh, I ran X distance, but I was super slow. I only ran this pace or I only ran this far. I mean, that's great. Most people don't do that at all. You got to look at the 95% of the people that are probably laying in bed sleeping still while you're out doing your running, whatever it is. So don't downplay whatever you're able to do, whether it's running or walking or biking or whatever your exercise of choice is.
So maybe that's another word we can take out of our vocabulary, along with should. We can take out only.
Yes, absolutely.
No such thing as only. 2 more. Well, actually, I can read all the whole list, but each decade is better than the one before. I love that.
Yes, I've found that to be the case. Every decade looking back has gotten better and better and better. I think we find ourselves more, we learn more about ourselves, and we can be true to who we are more confidence as we get older. So yeah, I found each decade to get better and better.
I think it's almost like we feel more comfortable in our own skin, or we feel better in our own skin, and the way it fits us. It's almost like we're not trying to be something or someone that we're not. We realize who we really are and what we've accomplished, and it's a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, it is. I always think about, I think I was in high school at the time, and a teacher came up to me and she's like, you're happy most of the time, aren't you? And I was like, no, not really. And that was the truth, because I wasn't unhappy, but I mean, I'm happier now than I was back in high school. I'm definitely more positive and upbeat than I was back then.
Excellent. Okay. And then this one, I really like this one. The last one, I love it when people tell me that I'm crazy to take on challenges.
Oh yeah, I get that all the time when I'm going to do a race, event, a run. Like, why are you doing that? Why do you want to do that? You're going to hurt yourself, or this or that, or, you're crazy to do that. And I'm looking at them. Number one, I think it's great to have a big challenge in front of you to keep you motivated and keep life interesting and keep you trying to improve. But number two, most of the time, the people that think I'm crazy to try anything or do any exercise are people that are totally out of shape or way, way overweight. And they're telling me I'm crazy for trying to be healthy.
Yeah, I got that a lot, especially when I was starting martial arts. You're too old, you can't do it, you're going to get hurt, and it was just, the list went on and on and on. And I love it how everybody else is an expert on what, on your life. Right? It just, it drives me crazy. Okay. So tell us about, now you're getting started for training for a marathon.
Not quite yet. I will.
So not quite yet.
I've got one other event coming up first.
Okay. And what's that next event coming up?
This is the one that some people think I'm crazy at. I've never done anything like this before, but it totally captured my fancy. It's a hiking event, hiking up a mountain. What it is called 29029 Everesting. And where that name comes from, well, let me tell you what the event is and I'll explain it better. The goal is to hike up the equivalent vertical ascent of Mount Everest, which is 29,029 feet. That's where the 29029 comes in. So the goal is to hike up 29,029 feet. You have 36 hours to complete it. And it's held in like 5 different locations. I'm going to be in Snow Basin, Utah in August. And you hike, every mountain's different. And this particular one I'm going to, you hike up the mountain, you take the gondola down, you don't hike down. Each
Okay.
ascent is about 2,300 feet. I mean, we're not
Okay.
hiking up Mount Everest. We're hiking up mountains. This
Mhm.
mountain's in the US, but we hike up, gondola down, hike up, gondola down, and so forth. It takes 13 ascents to Everest to achieve the equivalent vertical ascent of Mount Everest. So that's the goal. And I'm hard at work at training for that right now, but really super looking forward to it. I've never done any hiking event before, never been a hiker. It's all new to me. It just keeps things interesting and exciting.
That is fantastic. Now, what is the highest peak that you're going to climb? I'm just curious in altitude. Do you know?
Yeah, it's just one mountain. We go up and down it.
Oh,
We hike up it, take the gondola down, hike back up the same mountain. We 13 ascents in the same mountain.
okay.
It starts at about 6,500 feet at the base and goes up to about 8,800.
Okay. Okay. So how, since you're in Texas, how do you train for that altitude? Okay, I'm in Colorado, right? And I mean,
Yes.
I've hiked in the mountains a lot, and I have even done 3 14ers. Have
Wow.
only summited once. And I looked at my husband and I said, that's enough. Check that off my list.
Wow.
We were a lot younger then, but I really have been having a hankering lately to try it in our, 60s, but I don't know. I don't know if we're going to do it or not. The altitude, once the altitude starts getting thinner and as you're going up, I mean, it's definitely a challenge. And, we live here, so we're acclimated to the lower oxygen levels and the higher altitude. So do you have to train for that, or do you just go bust in and breathe deep?
Well, as far as the training goes, we don't have those mountains here that you do. You have that big advantage in Colorado. I go to Austin once a month. There's 7 other people who are doing this event. Also, coincidentally, live in Central Texas. So we meet up once a month to hike. The mountains are nothing like what you have in Colorado, but it's all we got. So they might have an 800-foot ascent each climb. So we do that. And then I also go on a treadmill I work on it at 20 to 30% inclines. So pretty sharp up.
Yeah.
And then I'm doing stair steppers. And then we have a coach actually in this plan. It comes with a coach and he gives us a training plan. And other days are just running or jogging, he calls it, for cardio fitness. But people always ask the question about the altitude. How do you train for it? Because some people who are doing this event are coming from Florida, Georgia, places without altitude. And he keeps saying, you'll be okay, follow the plan. People from Florida had completed it before without altitude training. So I'm taking his word for that. And he also says that if we're outside in the humidity training, he's calling humidity a poor man's altitude training. So hopefully training in the humidity will help.
I can kind of see that. I can kind of understand that. That makes sense. Well, it actually sounds like it would be so much fun. At least I think maybe the first 2 times going up and then the gondola down. I think by the 3rd time I'd be ready to, tap out and say I've had enough, but it sounds really fun.
Hopefully I won't feel that way. I don't think I will.
Well, you're going to have to keep me. When is it, the event?
It's the middle of August.
Okay. Do let me know how it works out.
Okay.
Because I really want to hear about that. Okay. So what would you recommend for somebody who's listening to this show, this episode, and they're thinking, you know what? It's time for me to maybe put on some running shoes and get started. What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, number one, figure out your big why. As I mentioned before, that will keep you going. Why do you want to run? Why are you doing this? What is your purpose? And it has to be something that's very important to you. And for me, it's just simply to live a long and healthy life. And that might resonate with somebody else also. So get your big why, and then to actually get out there and do it. You can either do a very slow jog, or some people even do a run for a few minutes, walk for a few minutes to just get started moving. but I would listen to, I like Nike has a running app, and there's a coach on there. This is free, by the way. Coach Bennett is on there, and he has some audio guided runs. You just put in your headphones, and it's for beginners. And you get his encouragement and positivity for just short runs. For just I think one's a 10-minute run and one's a 15-minute run, and up from there. So I like to listen to him. I used him for the half marathon training I did. I like the positivity encouragement from that, or even better, if you have a running buddy, someone that wants to do it with you, that would be even better. But if not, find some source of encouragement and positivity, and also listen to positive podcasts, positive books. I like reading books about people that accomplish things and do things, and same things on podcasts. So just take in the positivity.
Okay, so that's a nice little segue for going to your show. So for the listeners to subscribe to your podcast, find it. You can find it on Buzzsprouts? Or...
It's anywhere. It's anywhere you listen to podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Google.
Okay, excellent. And I really want to highlight again how you keep saying those two words, positivity and encouragement. So for the listeners, if you are trying to get started, if you come across somebody who doesn't have that kind of positivity or want to encourage you, if they're trying to tell you that you're crazy to start, move along and find somebody else, because that positivity and that encouragement is just so important. Right?
Exactly. An accountability partner is great. Someone that you can run with or share what you're doing with. That'll definitely keep you going.
I have an accountability partner for my pole workouts, my dance classes. And it's really interesting because we text each other every day going, are you going to go? I don't feel like going. Do you feel like going? And eventually it's like, I don't want to. It's just, no, I'm not in the mood. And eventually we both end up in class and we have a great time.
Yes. Good, good. And you know what? Sometimes those times you don't want to do it, when you finish, you feel better about it and happier than the times that it came easy.
And then I also think about how would I feel if I did just give in and stay home and sit on the couch, and I probably wouldn't feel much better physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
That me too. Exactly. That reminds me, point on an affirmation I heard somebody else say. He always says, and I think about this all the time. He says, remember tomorrow. What he means is, how will you feel tomorrow if you don't do this today, or if you quit?
Wow.
How will you feel tomorrow? So I always goes through my head during runs when it's getting hard at the end. Remember tomorrow. How am I going to feel tomorrow if I stop now? I'm going to feel really upset at myself that I didn't push through the last 5-10 minutes or whatever it is. So that's an affirmation that works for me.
And you almost get that sensation of feeling victorious once you do complete it. Well, Barry, it's just been great having you on the show. I love talking to you. I love your energy. I love the fact that we are kindred spirits in this, quest to create a very healthy, vibrant society of people over the age of 50, 60, 70, 80, and beyond.
It's been so much fun to be here. I really, really enjoyed it. And thanks, Cheryl, for what you're doing. And I love your energy too, and your spirit and your willingness to try new things. Well,
you know what? If I didn't, I think life would be really boring. And what's the point, right?
Right, right.
Okay. Well, thank you again so much for being on the show.
Okay. Thanks, Cheryl.
Everybody, thank you for listening. What a fantastic conversation. Please do check out Barry's podcast. He has some fantastic guests on his show. I was one of them, and I'm not saying it just because of that, but pretty incredible stories, very encouraging, and getting that positive boost of information and energy, which is something we can all use right about now. And if running is something you've been considering doing it, maybe now's the time. And you're not getting any younger, but that doesn't matter because you can do anything at any age. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.